Good afternoon, everyone. The time is 3:33. Today is Wednesday, August 16th. I call to order the Committee of the Whole meeting of the Birmingham City Council. Thank you all, everyone, for joining us today. We do have 3 items on our agenda, and we'll be following that agenda as was printed and published. First, councilors, you received a copy of the minutes of the previous meeting of May 17th, 2023 by email. If you've had an opportunity to review, can I get a motion and a second for approval of those minutes?
So moved.
Second. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Thank you. The approval of those minutes are obtained. Our first speaker this afternoon is, we will have a presentation from President and CEO Clinton Lacey regarding Credible Messenger Mentoring Movement, CM3. And so, Mr. Lacey, if you'll come on up and join us. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. I'm honored to be here. Again, my name is Clinton Lacey, President and CEO of the Credible Messenger Mentoring Movement. And we are really inspired and honored to be present here to have conversation with the potential of collaborating with leadership in the government and in the community here in Birmingham. And I'd like to just share a few slides that describes our work to help address the tragic rise of violence here in Birmingham, which is unfortunately taking place around the country. But the promising, in fact, evidence-based work that we've had the honor to be involved in to help address, to prevent violence and to intervene, to decrease violence and promote public safety and wellness in the community. I'd like to start, next slide, please. Yes. So just, the basic idea here really rests on the core belief that it is critical that government and law enforcement has partners in the community. Government and law enforcement cannot, and it's unfair to think that government and law enforcement could by itself reach the goals of preventing violence, of drastically decreasing it, without engaged community members to be part of it. So that's the real premise of our work. It's really investing in the village that it takes to raise our children, to make our community safe and whole and well. And so members of the community, of the village, of neighborhoods, need to be empowered partners in the process. And so the work of Credible Messenger really seeks to bring substance to that idea that community and government and law enforcement need to work together to make our streets safe. And so the idea then is that through that partnership, if we can train and build the capacity of our community members to be active participants in promoting peace and intervening to prevent violence, and really a longer-term process of walking literally and figuratively with people through a process of healing, restoration, and connection to services, so that they can not just turn away from violence, but become productive, whole, healthy members of our community, and in fact, participate in the process of keeping our community safe. And that's what the work has been all about. And so our experience has shown us that credible messengers, people who are rooted in the community, they're called credible because many of them have had shared life experiences to those that they serve. Many of them have been incarcerated, not necessarily incarcerated, but many have experienced violence, have been on both sides of that issue, have done harm, have been harmed, have suffered marginalization in the form of substance abuse, homelessness, etc., the various issues that we know our communities face. But most importantly, who have stories of healing, restoration, and redemption, and who are now passionate about giving back and engaging people to help pull them out of the crisis of violence and help put them on a positive trajectory and pathway for success. And so, Credible Messenger mentoring itself, mentoring has been established by the federal government as an evidence-based practice. But this is not the traditional mentoring relationship. This is a very intense, relationship that's focused specifically on preventing violence and helping to put people on a road and pathway to transformation. I'd like to talk about that a bit going forward. Next slide, please. So who are credible messengers? As I just started to describe, that word is used very widely these days. There's a lot of connotations around it. Credible messengers are people, again, as you can see, who are rooted natural leaders in their communities. They have many of the shared life experiences of those that they serve, as I just said. But most importantly, they have a proven track record beyond those experiences of formerly being incarcerated, et cetera, formerly being involved in gangs, et cetera. They have a proven track record of community service, of peacemaking, of support to people, of being part of a process that really promotes safety and wellness in the community. And I'll speak momentarily about a process of vetting to make sure that the credible messengers who are brought on are in fact those people. So the consistent presence is a critical part of the work. And yes, there's inspiring and impactful messages. One of the things that we talk about and want to highlight is that the message is much more than, hey, I've been there, I've done that, I've experienced it. That's just a part of a message that can help to build trusting relationships. The most powerful message that credible messengers have is their message of healing, of restoration, of redemption, which they themselves embody, but which they themselves are there to walk with people literally and figuratively through their process, right, of sustaining peace and wellness and connection to services. So it's through those transformative relationships that credible messengers are able to achieve that result that we all care about. Next slide. So this is, again, not a gimmick. It's not scare straight. It's not just put the OGs in the room with the bad kids and maybe they can talk some sense into them. It's much more than that, right? Certainly it does rely on the fact that credible messengers have an experience and have an ability to connect in a way that many others haven't because they haven't experienced it, so they don't know exactly what it feels like or what that experience is. So yes, that's a positive part of it. But the training and the preparation and the process is a very serious discipline process, right? That focuses on healing and restoration. It's very structured and systematic, and I'll talk about that momentarily. This is not a quick hit. This is not just a brief intervention. The credible messenger mentoring model calls for credible messengers to be in the lives of our most troubled young people and young adults, those who we're most concerned about, those who are spiraling in and out of incarceration and involved in violence in our communities, right? It's about them walking with them over time, at least a year, often 2 years or more, to ensure that positive habits are formed, that connections to behavioral health and education and employment are made. The credible messenger is the life coach, is this layer of support to be with people over time. After perhaps incarceration, where there's been an intervention, we often talk about how great work. I met with the sheriff, and we talk about the awesome things that are being done to help prepare people as they come home. But who's there at home, in the community, in the neighborhood, to catch them, to embrace them, and to continue that process in an intensive way? And that's the credible messenger. And so it's built on relationships, but it really leverages those relationships to make those connections that we continue to talk about. Next slide, please. Just briefly, a history of our work. I was the Deputy Commissioner of the Probation Department in New York City from 2011 to 2015. And there we embarked on this journey of credible messenger work. Again, acknowledging that it's critical that as a law enforcement agency of probation, we needed community partners. We needed eyes and ears and voices and arms to wrap around our folks when they weren't in our offices or when they weren't just in our programs, but when they were in their homes and in their neighborhoods. And those became the credible messengers. And after 3 years of that process, the Urban Institute came out in 2016 with a study and showed an unprecedented 60% reduction in recidivism. And that was an amazing statistic in terms of those fellow people on felony probation, many for violent offenses, who did not reoffend, who did not get violated, who did not go back to prison, but most importantly, who did not continue to do harm in the community. But behind that amazing statistic of 60% reduction in recidivism was the demonstration that And investment into the community to build the capacity and to train community members is a worthy investment. It's a viable process with proven outcome. On the heels of that, I became the director of Washington, D.C.'s Youth Justice Department in 2015 and was there for 6 years. And there we continued to expand the initiative. In D.C., we had responsibility for 2 locked secure facilities, a detention center and a post-dispositional youth correctional facility, where we infused credible messengers there as well. And there we saw reductions in violent incidents inside of the facility and a really stronger bridge, transitional reentry bridge was built. So as people came out of those institutions, they were supported and embraced and they could continue on their pathway of rehabilitation and restoration. In 2021, I resigned from that position in Washington, D.C. to start CM3, really with a passion for supporting work that's being done around the country and the work that's already taking place here in Birmingham. But I think it's really important to point out that we, at CM3, we have a framework, we have a model, we have curriculum. We're very serious about training, about vetting, and we can share those tools and experiences. But the people and the work is already here. The passion is here, the expertise is here. We're here to bring more structure, data collection processes, et cetera, to help connect the dots between the various initiatives that are here. Violence interruption, hospital-based intervention, Restore, and various other projects. Help connect the dots to make sure that over time, those same people who've been able to engage, we can walk with them over a year, 2 years, and put them on a pathway that they won't come back to us in this way, that they'll be part of our community in a positive way. Next slide. And so that's what we're doing around the country now in several jurisdictions throughout the South, Florida, Georgia, Louisiana, Texas, and as well as out west and north and Midwest as well. Training is a very serious process, and it begins with vetting, as I continue to repeat. It's very important that there's a process to screen and vet people coming to do this work. We're putting in their hands great responsibility for peacemaking, for engaging people. It's such a serious issue. So this is something that we don't take a frivolous approach to, and of course I know that you all don't here as well. And so as people are vetted, then the training begins, and these are some of the areas of training that we focus on in CM3. You can see them there, such things as positive youth development, restorative justice, individual transformative mentoring. Credible messengers are required to be on call 24/7. This is not a 9 to 5. This is work where someone has to answer a phone at 3 o'clock in the morning, at 4 o'clock in the morning, or get out of bed to go help somebody at 6 in the morning, right? Because that's where the need is, and that's the role, that's the important role that credible messengers play. So we spend a lot of time sharpening their skills, putting more tools into their toolbox. Critically, at the end in the bottom right-hand corner, it says co-navigating services and resources. The credible messenger is not a program, it's more of a layer of support in the form of a person who is there to be with people, to guide them, to nudge them, to push, to pull, to help create boundaries, but at the end of the day, to make sure that people go where they need to go, do what they need to do, and participate in the services and programs that they need to in order to transform, in order to become healthy, whole, peaceful, right? The people who their families, we all want them to be in our communities. And so that's a part of the training that CM3 offers to this initiative. Next slide. And so just a bit about the role. I've said much of it as we've been discussing it, but it's to form these trusted relationships. It is to provide group activities as well as individual intensive transformative mentoring. We talked about the need to be available 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, because that's what's needed, right? That type of accessibility to provide the life coaching and to connect to services. Last on that list is something that in too many initiatives we just don't have enough documentation. a collection of data to tell the story, to prove the effectiveness, to provide qualitative and quantitative data, right? To really demonstrate, is this actually working? It sounds nice, it feels good, but what's the impact at the end of the day is what we all are here and what we care about, really decreasing violence in a significant way. And so part of the process then, and even the training of credible messengers themselves, are to participate in documenting what they do, their interactions, communicating with the key stakeholders represented here in this room today throughout the city. So that's part of the role. Next slide. And the next slide just speaks about credible messengers, the same criteria, same role and responsibilities, but even inside of detention centers, right, where they are. This is a point in detention centers, but in the community. Credible messengers are not here to replace or compete with or challenge law enforcement, right? They're not trying to be police. They're not here to be correctional officers. They are here to be a layer of support to help us all do our job in a more effective way and to help people participate in a positive way, right, to reach the goals that we all have for them. And so this is all part of the training and the structure that's brought to the folks on the ground doing the work. Next slide. So just a draft budget which hopefully begins to paint a picture for the cost of these types of initiatives and what's been discussed as possible here in Birmingham. Gives a sense of the salary for a credible messenger. And of course, this is subject to adjustment in terms of the specific numbers of credible messengers, et cetera. But you can see $45,000 a year as a entry-level beginning of credible messenger salary. The idea of a lead credible messenger is one who is the team leader, management, and the other resources that are brought to the table to make it successful. And then, of course, you can see there the training and the ongoing follow-up. So in addition to an intensive training that's provided for credible messengers, that's foundational. But then as the work begins, part of what CM3 does in partnership is continues to have a presence for ongoing technical assistance, ongoing training as issues arise in real time, right? There needs to be real response and feedback. And that really speaks to perhaps the last thing I would share at this moment is that, yes, we work around the country, we have a framework, we have a curriculum, but it has to fit the local context, right? It has to fit Birmingham and the people, the leadership, the organizations on the ground doing the work. And that's part of our ongoing technical assistance is to say, how do we help fit this? How can we support you all in your efforts to really get our hands around this issue of violence, to decrease it, and help put people on a positive trajectory? One thing that we know, and I'll close with this, as awesomely horrific, as tragic as violence is, it can be paralyzing, right? It can just breed more hopelessness. But we know we can get our hands around this. There is violence taking place in some horrible ways, but many of the people involved in those cycles are known to us. We know the communities, we know the families, we know the young people often. And so we really want to hone in and surround them with all that we have, with all that we can bring to the table to help put people on a positive trajectory. And that's what the work is all about. So again, honored to be here to discuss this initiative and what we are seeking to bring to the table, and just really inspired by what's happening here already, and hoping that we can add value to your ongoing work.
Well, thank you, Mr. Lacy. I appreciate you bringing this presentation to us and giving us more information about the Credible Messenger mentoring. I'm going to open it up for questions from our counselors and see if there's any additional information or just any comments you want to make to Mr. Lacy or regarding the presentation. Councilor Clark, thank you. I know.
I wanted to thank you for coming before and coming back. You were dressed differently the last time I saw you. But you know, I'm intrigued by this. It does And it's evidence-based and a proven methodology for intervening. And I guess for me, it seems like we're doing a lot, we're funding a lot of pieces, but they're not really tied together very well. I won't say that, because I know Brandon does a lot of tying together. But I do think some of the things we're funding, are intervening in a different way. Like when we do the financial literacy in schools, they're not really looked at as violence intervention, but it might help students become more engaged and less distracted and whatever. But I'm hopeful that maybe there's a way, like I like the idea of maybe with this layer also having some measurement that looks at a lot of the different things we're investing in and how, how are they having impact collectively,
Yes.
And maybe some things somebody else is paying for that's going on. So the credible messengers are compensated in this example you gave. Are they the only credible messengers that are placed in the community, or, because, I look at 3 or 4 and
Yes.
it just looks like, and we have to be very strategic about where those are being placed.
Yes.
That's not a lot, and do they have a caseload, or what is a reasonable amount of impact for each one to have in terms of lives they would touch or people they would track? It sounds like the engagement is more formal than organic. I mean,
Yes.
You know what I mean?
I
Like,
understand.
it's a structured interaction with
Indeed.
people, like if you're in a youth detention setting or a family court setting or wherever.
Yes.
I guess I just don't have a
questions.
sense of how it really works operationally.
That's a great question, and I would just begin with a set of questions. I just begin with the issue of the silos, right, and connecting the dots, which is so important, because if you have various initiatives, I think, and often doing good work, they're going to be most effective when there's a continuity and a continuum. And so that's part of what we offer in terms of support, just helping folks on the ground here to connect those dots so that the people doing the acute intervention and peacemaking and mediation are in relationship and communication, and it's handoffs to people, for example, doing hospital-based intervention, and that those folks have a direct connection to the longer-term credible messenger who is actually working as, in a sense, similar to like a case manager, or often partnering with a social worker when such a person is involved in a young person's life, to be that extra layer. So that's the important part. I think that the number of credible messages will hopefully expand. This sounds like, it seems to me from our experience, to be a significant start or addition, not a start because you're already working, to the larger set of initiatives that are taking place. So the infusion of credible messenger is seen, and I'm listening to the leadership here, as adding to what's here. But in adding, not just another piece to be siloed, but by definition, credible messengers acting as sort of those connectors. So one of the things we used to always raise the question when we were doing our, talking about particular kids when I was at MTC at the Department of Rehabilitation Services, we'd be like, well, who has Clinton, right? Clinton's the young man causing all kinds of trouble. Who's primary on him? Who's 24/7 knows? And our staff case managers had a role to play, but it was the credible messengers who were really that next layer, who were the glue to make sure then that that young person could understand this continuum of programs, even if they were such as education or vocational, that, as you said, may not sound like violence prevention, but they are critical if we can get Clinton connected. And so the credible messenger is sort of that navigator who help, and part of their training is to know the different programs and to understand, so that there's a primary person who kind of makes sure that that person can connect to the types of services. And so generally...
So it sounds like kind of an accountability partner, but
Yes.
a more intimate relationship than you would have with a normal, like, social worker.
Correct,
Like
yes.
the trust piece,
Very,
and
yes.
the bond, and the relationship. And I know for young people, you know, one caring adult can make a lot of difference, and the evidence is huge around that.
Yes.
But with older people, I mean, is there a strategic age group to target with this model?
Well, yeah,
or-
violence, and I would imagine the statistics here will be relatively consistent with what's happening nationally. With regards to violence, you know, the age, the primary sort of range is really looked at 18 to 30, generally speaking. And so it's really at those late teens and early 20s where we see the cluster in the statistics of people who are most involved in cycles of violence, right? So we've often focused on 16 to 25-year-olds, but with flexibility, because that's where you're going to find most people by the age of 30, we start to see the data really go down. If you looked at a chart in terms of people aging out or what have you, of that, those cycles of behavior, et cetera. So a primary audience is going to be young people, which tragically are getting younger now. We're seeing that in social media, et cetera. But we're talking about young people and young adults as a real audience who are, if you look at the arrest data and offense data, you're seeing, you know, young folks who are most caught up in these really horrible cycles. You know, credible messenger can be applied in a number of ways. So many of the programs, they will have approximately a caseload of 7 people, intensive, right? Again, being available around the clock, who they're responsible for working as a team with other credible messengers, right? This is not, I always say this is a team sport, not to make it light, but this is a team effort where credible messengers, and they form partnerships and teamwork with other initiatives. So they know each other, that they're meeting regularly, that they're case conferencing, because so often it's going to be many of the familiar names, families, neighborhoods, right? And so they can come together to share information with all of the stakeholders involved, of course, to work. So part of the conversation here has been if we can continue to train and develop groups of credible messengers, then the leadership here will decide how to deploy, where, and what particular places and neighborhoods would be most strategic to make the most impact.
I got about 10 more questions, but I want to ask them all. So is there any liability on the part of the case manager? I mean, I'm the credible messenger in, you know, influencing things in a fragile person's life?
Yeah, that's.
And have there been any, you know, not bad actors, but mistakes made that your model has learned from? Because, you know, it's all pretty delicate. Everybody's a little broken.
Very delicate, correct.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so in our training, it is exactly that we focus on. We reference a book called The Wounded Healer, which is written to guide ministers on how to minister to people. That it's and when we talk to credible messengers, it's the acknowledgement of your wounds, it's the acknowledgement of your journey, right? And that you're continuing to grow and heal. Even credible messengers aren't perfect, but it is not denying that or pretending, right? As you said, we all are on the path, and so part of the training is to be mindful of that and to use that as your power to connect. But this is, you know, many of the folks we work with, they call this sacred work. They say, because you're having a person's life in your hands, and you have this tremendous ability to influence. And so when you have that opportunity, you have to treat it with such care. And so part of the training then is to, not just about how to serve young people, but credible messengers' wellness, their mindfulness. You're not a savior. You're not a police officer. You know, you're a community member who has an experience that can be helpful, but you're here to help and guide. And so the vetting then becomes so important for us. We were always mindful of that. Beginning in New York, and when we went to DC with the initiative, we took it to the next level. So in addition to the standard sort of background check, that's been part of the process. And of course, we know many credible messengers may have a previous, obviously previous criminal history. But wanting to understand that some communities have vetted out certain offenses, like crimes against children, or certain sexual offenses have been vetted out, and so the community can make those decisions on what they might consider exclusionary. But the bigger vetting that we've seen, what we think is most important, is what we sort of refer to as the street background check, right? And that's the community reference. Who is this person? What's their track record? Who knows them? What speaks to their seriousness, their readiness to engage in this really important work? And so one of the great things about Birmingham that I've had the pleasure to know, and know some of the incredible messengers on the ground here and organizations here, is that there's folks, that's a resource that exists. People who've been doing this work, who have a proven track record, who take this work very seriously. The last thing I would say about it is one of the strengths of it is that the biggest defenders of the integrity of the work become the credible messengers, right? They, everywhere we've worked, it becomes, and so in DC, we actually contracted a seasoned, senior, long-term credible messenger to be our leader of a committee that would vet all candidates. Because, right, we wanted someone with that perspective, that experience, to help make sure that the folks coming to this work are ready for the work. And sometimes it's a rare occasion. There have been people who we've had to let go in different places because they got in trouble, or that's happened rarely, because vetting is never going to be 100% perfect. But what's most important is not just are they serious. People come to this generally very sincere about it. Are they stable? Is their housing solid, right? Or are they quasi-homeless? These are the kinds of questions. It's not just of their integrity or seriousness, but are they in a place where they can be relied upon to be solid, reliable, consistent, credible messengers. So that's part of the vetting process too. And so take that very seriously. And it's had a really good record, in places because, again, they themselves don't want to see this tainted because of a bad actor or because of a relapse or something, And so that's, I think, a real strength that the credible messengers sort of police it themselves, to use that word, right? To make sure, and it's not just from a punitive point of view, but it's like, Clinton, are you all right? Like, you seeming like maybe you're going through something. So the eyes on and support of credible messengers is part of it too. In DC, we started a support group for them to meet regularly, right? So they could, vicarious trauma, various issues like that they're dealing with because of what they're seeing there. So pouring into their wellness is part of the process too.
Thank you. Any other questions?
No, thank you, Mr. Lacy.
Thank you so much.
It's more of really just, I guess, as a refresher. So administration, we put aside $3 million for this, correct?
Yeah, you want me to answer?
Yeah, can you go into more detail about that? Can you go into more detail about that?
Yeah, so the $3 million that was set aside for the ARPA dollars was for community-based public safety initiative. So this was one of the ones that we had listed out outside of the Jefferson County hospital-based crime intervention program. This is one of the other tools in the toolbox of community-based violence reduction. So this is one of the, I think we have 4 more that we will present to the council that will take up that entire $3 million. But for Mr. Lacy and his group, this is a collaborative effort between the administration and Ms. Councilor Tate out of her ARPA dollars to get to that $500,000 budget that was presented.
Thank you, Mayor.
So Ms. Tate is putting up $200,000 of her own dollars, and then we're supplementing the rest.
Okay, and this is only for 1 year, and then
Yes.
what's going to happen after that?
We can.
So, as I've shared with the chair on public safety, what we're looking to see is some results will probably come, what happens this year, and then we'll be able to have further conversations.
Thank you. Well, I'm hopeful. And I often say that I have to give the mayor's team, Brandon Johnson and Uche Bean, real credit for this work. Because they put a lot of effort into this, and I'm grateful and humble that I can walk alongside of them and that I understand what is going on nationally and in the world when it comes to violence or any initiative. I often say, and I will not stop saying, we have to learn to work collectively and unify. When we unify and work as a collective and move as a collective front, then you will see more dollars pour into the state of Alabama when it comes to violence or any initiative that we are trying to. This is not a quick fix. And if anybody is sitting here thinking that it's gonna be something quick to get us on a quick trail, you're on the wrong trail. This is intense work. It takes a lot of heart to do this. And Councilor Clark, I was listening to you. It reminds me of when I was a PO. You on call 24/7. Being at home on Sunday evening, my phone ringing and telling me somebody is being arrested. What have done? So this is intensive work, and to know that we're going outside of the investments that the mayor has made. These are people that are literally be on the ground, walking hand in hand with the individuals, holding them accountable for what they have done and to get them in a safety mechanism. We have credible messengers sitting in the back room back there. And I said, and I will say this again, that it's a shame that people that have put time in doing this work had to leave the state of Alabama and go to Atlanta to be recognized for what they do, for people in Birmingham to appreciate who they are. OAA has put on a lot of time doing this work. We have a lot of credible people on the streets that are ready to hit the streets. It takes resources. It takes money to do this. So I'm grateful and honored that I was able to put some ARPA dollars toward this. And the mayor was able to also invest. I believe my whole goal as the chair of public safety is to stand tall and make sure that we move this city in a safe manner. It is not about who didn't invest. That's not important to me. What's important to me is having 0 homicides. That's what's important to me at this point. And moving this city in a safe manner. That's what's important to me. So I really hope that this is a start and we'll be able to see results that we're seeing across the country. We don't have to reinvent the wheel. All we got to do is make it work for Birmingham. Bring it here and make it work for Birmingham. Shape it for Birmingham. And I think one thing that Mr. Lacey did, we're going to train about 40 people.
Yes.
About 40 people are going to be trained, and we're going to vet these people. Because what I don't want to see is people harming the community and treating this as a hustle. This is real business. It's not a hustle. And he said, as he said, this is not a frivolous act. This is real business. And that's why it has been successful across the country. And it's going to be successful here. So thank you, Mayor, your team. Thank you to my colleagues who have walked alongside of me on this journey. Because we got a long way to go. And so thank the partners. It's about building an ecosystem. Once we build an ecosystem, as Mr. Lacey said, this silo stuff will stop. That's the goal. That's what I did back here in April. Brought all these nonprofits together so we can know who's doing what, who knows who, and what each other's doing. It gotta talk people. You gotta be able to point somebody, you need to go over here for homeless, you need to go over here to get a job. Once that ecosystem gets in place, then we'll be able to, we'll be able to say we're doing some real stuff in Birmingham. But thank you, Mr. Lacey, for your time and presenting to my colleagues on today.
Thank you.
Just
Council
a
Pro
couple more
Tem.
questions, because, and really I think it's for the public to know and other people. So once this is kind of, I guess, approved, what's the timeline? When are we gonna start the vetting process? When is this gonna get to roll? Do we have something? You said September, yes.
Once we got a president, or we send it to the agenda, and then I guess it'll start the training.
Who's gonna
Wouldn't the mayor's office have to?
No, that's, because if you're
That comes
asking
from-
us, yes, we're ready to move forward on, the contract is ready. I think it was this step to get it through a committee process to vet it before we just submit it straight to the agenda without
Okay.
any recognition from this committee or this council.
Thank you.
Now, Madam Pro Tem, now actually, like saying, it started 3 days. I think the window will be short to start onboarding people for training. Unfortunately, looking at you today, I can't give you, here's the date. I'm confident it will not be long.
Well, I've been on the calls, I knew it was September, but we
Yes.
just say everybody's on the
Yeah.
calls with us, and now they'll probably be
It's
September.
the same process.
Yeah.
Once council approve it, we submit a full executed contract, then Mr. Lacy and his group can give us a certain timeline of implementation.
And Mr. Lacy, is it okay if council step into the training sometimes?
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
Thank you so much again. Well, let me ask this, because it's quick, it goes right to what he just said. I'm gonna come back to you. Just wanted to find out, now, the proposed budget, it lists the 3 full-time credible messengers, 1 lead, as far as the messaging piece. But you also said about training 40 people, so how does this flow into the budget portion of it? Or these 40 people will be a period of time, or they won't be the initial? I was just trying to see.
Yes, my understanding is that the people participating in the training, some of, it's inclusive of those kind of messages in the budget, but it's also people who are currently working on this.
All right, Council Clark, sorry.
Simple question.
Yes.
Is clear. Who administers it on your side, the contract? Like,
That will
the
be,
hobby, is that still under Brandon? Okay. I didn't know, because he's in the law department.
yeah, it's the stimulus command team and everybody else, because we have to check off and compliance
What
thing.
is that?
The stimulus command, Chris Hatcher and his team.
Okay, okay, gotcha.
Bizarre.
But in terms of an operating area that it,
There will be check downs on everything that's submitted before we pay anything.
no, I mean, like,
Reporting,
there's no peace and policy department or division.
But a lot of those roles are now in social justice and racial.
Social justice.
That's why she
Okay,
referenced
so
the
that's
JB.
the operating area where this
correct.
kind of lives. Okay. Okay, that's all. I was just wondering.
Okay, so we have clarity. We don't necessarily need action, we do not need action from this committee of the whole in order for,
A recommendation from the committee.
Well,
will be-
I
Would that be
have
helpful?
one question to, I do have
Yes.
one question. So this says 18 months, but we also said a year. So is it 18 months or a year that we're doing this?
18, you said 18 months?
It's 18 months?
So, Ms. Mayor, you mean we'll reevaluate after 18 months, after 12, right?
Yeah, I mean,
Is that where your conclusion is?
actually both. I
Okay.
mean, look, we have calendar year and we have fiscal year. So I think check-ins, check-downs with the council,
Oh, yeah.
no different than the other program. I think, heat is gonna be coming up next. I think you all, regardless of the time the program's on the ground, with all of our new programs, you need and want information. So I don't think it'll be a, hey, let's assess and discuss after 18 months. I think you'll see us, based on you requesting it, coming back to you well before 12. So,
all right, so with that said, councilors, do we have a motion and a second that we recommend allowing, do we allow the mayor, or do we recommend that the mayor brings forward this program for consideration or administration?
I move that we proceed with this program.
That's it, thank you.
Second.
Thank you. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. All right, thank you very much. Thank you. Appreciative to you, Mr. Lacy. I'm very appreciative to Councilor Tate and to, yeah, thank you. Appreciate that. All right, thank you, Mr. Lacy. We appreciate you. Looking forward to those results. Next, in line with sort of the theme this afternoon, for our second agenda item, we do have an update about our HEAT program, which is Habilitation, Empowerment, and Accountability Therapy, part of the Penny Foundation. And so we have Municipal Court Judge Andre Sparks to come and give us those updates. We appreciate Judge Sparks and appreciate you, Mayor Woodfin, for answering our call. I believe we had asked for this update previously, and so we appreciate you all bringing this to us. Thank you. Yes. We don't, but whichever way you feel better.
You want to sit down?
Nah, he got to stand up.
See, one of those kind that have to do this. Yes, thank you.
I'm used to standing up, so.
All right.
I want to say good afternoon to everyone. My name is Andre Sparks, and I'm honored to serve as the presiding judge for the city of Birmingham. And I'm glad to come here with the team that's been managing the Common Ground program. The Common Ground program, of which he is a curriculum in the Common Ground program. I'm going to show you why it's important to say it that way in a few minutes, but it's the Common Ground Restorative Justice Program. Glad to have with me a brother from Department of Youth Services, Gavin Phillips. We also need to tell you that we have various team members who've been helping boots on the ground, as we say, manage this program every single day. And I want to make sure that they get acknowledged and let me talk that they do the walking out.
Your Honor, I thought you were gonna say a brother from another mother.
That works too, man. We can't start this conversation without underlining the fact that this is a true partnership with the City of Birmingham school system. They have, in every respect, responded to every request that's been made of them. And I want to make sure we start out saying that Dr. Sullivan has opened every resource from the school. Over the last few weeks, our team has met not only with the leadership of the Birmingham school system, we've met with all the principals, we've met with all the counselors, we've met with support staff, all in preparation for the upcoming school year. And so we're excited that they are fully on board with what we're doing this year because they saw the results from last school year. So we're going to just try to run through this real quick. It's a few slides here, but I believe we can get through it. The Common Ground program is a holistic approach to dealing with violence and negative thinking in schools. We started the Common Ground program by using one curriculum, and that's the HEAT curriculum. HEAT stands for Habilitation, Empowerment, and Accountability Therapy. And we use a holistic, evidence-based approach that's based on the strengths of each student. We use coaches from the community who are certified by our process, and they come into the school systems and the other areas that we teach it 2 times a week for 60 to 90 minutes at a time. They are everybody from the community, postman, fireman. We simply get everybody in. If they want to participate and they clear our process, then we certify them. Each school has to identify the students to participate. And so every school in the Birmingham school system has identified 30 young men and 30 young ladies in every school. And we're excited because this semester is the first semester that every school will have a girls cohort. We were in pilot phase last semester, but we've grown to the place that now we get all young ladies in every school. There's a liaison appointed from the school to work with our team, and we also require them to give us an accessible space that's available to us each time we come. We come during non-curriculum time, but it's for an hour and a half. And so that's a long time for us to be there. But each school this semester has made non-curriculum time available for the Common Ground program to come in. That's how committed they are to it. We keep attendance and other records because we know statistics make it valuable to all of us and let us know that all the resources are being wisely taken care of. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. So I want to show you this slide because I think there's a misnomer that we're only doing this program for children. But we started out doing this program for adults, and we've now changed it so that we're including children. And so I want to run through what we call in the program the Common Ground universe that had to be created to create an environment so that conflict resolution could be taught on a long-term basis. If you would, please, next slide. Got it. Common Ground Adult Program started about 6 or 7 years ago in municipal court. We started sending people who were involved in conflict resolution to this program using the HEAT curriculum as a basis. And HEAT, we can give you more information on that, but it was designed by 2 African-American therapists who made the curriculum because there was nothing in the community that they could pull that talked to young men who were of color on a cultural basis. They created it, and the rest is history for us. It's been dynamic for us. We started sending people who were convicted of gun cases to this program, and the results were astronomical because even though we made them go to a 24-week class, They didn't, well, they didn't cuss me a whole lot after I sent them to the class because they enjoyed it. They didn't want to go, but after they completed the class, a sort of camaraderie started being created. And so we felt from that we could bring it down to a younger level and let younger citizens participate in this program. And that's why we created Heat for Youth, Common Ground for Youth, where we use the Heat for Youth curriculum. There is a younger curriculum that we've designed from this that is designed for younger minds, but it uses the same cultural model to teach them the same conflict resolution principles. We also have created, next one, yeah, a curriculum for elementary school children. That's coming out this semester. We're modeling it, piloting it this semester in 2 schools in Birmingham. 2 schools are going to be Wyland Elementary Schools and Huffman Academy. And instead of using a small cohort from each school, the schools and we have decided that we're going to go to a particular grade and take students from each one of the classes in those grades and pilot the program with the expectation that next year you'll have Common Ground Elementary in every school, every elementary school in the public school system here in Birmingham. Excel is the curriculum we're using. Excel was created by us and a nonprofit here in Birmingham that uses video-based, evidence-based training to talk to kids about making better decisions. We use a character education schedule that the school system has already put out so that we can come in each week and be on the same sheet of music with the principles and guidelines that they are teaching. And we reinforce that with our coaches, who will still come in 60 to 90 minutes. And we were in a rush last semester because of how the program came about. And so we finished a 24-week curriculum in a semester. That was too fast for us, but it was simply because of the amount of time we had to get started. This year is going to be better because we'll be able to take a principle and use a week to talk about it, so we can reinforce it with academics, with theory, and then application, and so it'll last the whole school year. Next slide. We've got a good problem that's developed since we've already been in action for 3 semesters in the school system. We have kids who have completed the program. Those kids, to a person, are all asking for something else to be involved in. And so we've had to create the Leaders Program. We're going to use the program that the school already has to create peer leaders. And we're going to make all of these participants who have already graduated peer leaders in their school. Once they complete this curriculum, they'll help us teach the other kids who are in the program now the same principles. So in a sense, we're helping them learn how to reinforce the principles all over again. And that's what the Leaders Program. We also know that one of the big components of the program has got to be family involvement. If we don't get parents involved, then we are missing the boat. And so this semester, with the support of the school's family guidance program, with the school's family guidance curriculum, we're going to start, if you will, bringing in parents to participate in the teaching that we're using in the class and asking them to help us reinforce it at home. We know this is a heavy lift. It's a heavy lift, but it's a necessary lift. And it's part of what we got to do in order for us to have a holistic program. If we can't get this piece up, we're going to continue to struggle because the kids get one thing at school and it's not reinforced at home. And so we've got to do this. We think we've got some creative ways to get it done, and we're excited about how we're going to involve families moving forward. Next slide. You already know about the Restore program. Brandon and his crew here, they've told you about that. But Restore is part of the Common Ground universe. I want to make sure we say that. Next slide, please. And then we got the adults who've already been through our program through the courts. And I should tell you, it's not just Birmingham Municipal Court. Common Ground is also being utilized by the Jefferson County District Court. They're sending their individuals from their courts to our program. Our coaches are teaching them. And so they'll be eligible once they graduate to be in the alumni group. Some of them will turn around and probably end up being certified as coaches to come back through and help us in the school system if they qualify. And so we had to create an alumni group for those adults who graduate as well. And we're excited about how that's beginning to grow. Next slide. Secret sauce in this program is the coaches. What we've really done is brought citizens back into the school system. And so these children who would not ordinarily be able to be around these individuals, these preachers and teachers, retired teachers and principals and postmen and firemen, now get a chance to spend significant time with them in class 2 times a week for a whole year. And we know that their very presence is going to help make a difference because they're going to be able to support the teaching, they're going to be able to support the kids from a cultural standpoint, and they're going to be able to support these kids just in learning life lessons that they wouldn't ordinarily get a chance to do. So to date, we have been able to certify almost 200 coaches. Almost 200 coaches that are in the schools. We got some specific numbers when we go down next slide. Yeah, so we're delivering 25 weeks of instruction 2 to 3 times a week to the cohorts. Each child gets a pre-assessment before they start, and they get a post-assessment afterward. The program orientation for this coming school year is going to be next Wednesday. We will have at Bill Harris Arena, all the kids who've been selected by the schools to start this semester will come to Bill Harris Arena. We anticipate there will probably be 800 or 900 kids there from the whole school system, and we're going to introduce them to their coaches, and we are as excited as we can be because this is the chance that relationships start forming with them. We'll bring them in, introduce them to their coaches, and after that, they'll be off and running for the next semester. Next slide. So we've had the opportunity to have 2 coaches orientations. We've had 2 semesters to come together with the principals. We're starting to mesh with them. Last semester we rushed, and so we weren't able to sit down and talk to the schools as much as we needed to understand which students needed to be in the classes. And they didn't understand either which ones needed to be in the classes. Now we got a better understanding of who can benefit from it, not just from us, but from the students as well. And so we're up to our 5th training program for common ground coaches, so much so that the designers of the HE curriculum have identified Birmingham as a potential training site for the HE curriculum. And we're looking forward to maybe them sending sending their other people who need training to Birmingham to be trained in the curriculum. So we're excited about that. Next slide. We started out with very meager numbers, but last semester we completed 325 folks in Birmingham school system. 49 females because it was only being piloted, but 276 young men completed the program last semester, which is excellent. Next slide. As for the adults that have been referred since 2018, of the 121 that have been referred, like I told you, 98 of them have completed it. The recidivism rate in this area is almost nil. When they go through the program, they do not come back to us in trouble. We've had 1 young man that died, was not related to anything that was, I think it was a car accident that he died in, but we include that number just for perspective. Next slide. Judge Fortune has referred 17 people to so far from her drug court at the county. They're doing pretty well. I mean, these people have long entrenched drug problems. And so I think as we get them more integrated into the program, we'll have the same kind of results from them as well. But she just started referring people in May of this year. Next slide. The number of certified coaches we have for boys and girls and adults. Next slide. We're up to, it's a little bit more than that, close to 200. These are the numbers I wanted you to see. Of the kids that went through the program last semester. These are the trends that we've been seeing. We've seen fights between those kids now who were sent by the counselors to the program because they were at risk. Fights have decreased in those kids by 87%. Suspensions have decreased by 86%. Disciplinary actions in those children who were at risk decreased by 77%. And absences in those kids have decreased by 75%, which we're ecstatic about. If those trends continue, then across the board, we anticipate seeing better results in behavior and necessarily, we hope, better results academically. Next slide. Same thing. It's just a different look at it. As you can see, the numbers have trended down. We hope we can come back and give you numbers equally as well. Next slide. The completion rate is one of the things we gotta work on. Gotta make sure the kids stay in the program. Of course, we don't have all the control on that. We put them in the program, they get in, and for whatever reason, 23% of them did not complete. Some of them got in trouble elsewhere. Some of them decided, I don't want to try this, it's frightening or whatever, because we have to talk too much in these programs, because they do have to talk in the program. But 77% of them completed. 77% completed, and we believe that number is going to be higher this time, because I think the other kids will convince them that it's worth staying. Next slide. We've also participated in that DJA listening session because we realize that partners are important. And to that end, we're trying to amass partners from around the city, in addition to all the folks that Council Tate keeps talking about in the community, which we need. We also have solicited business partners. Larry Thorne, who owns McDonald's, is on board with us as a proud business owner, and he too is supporting us in terms of getting other business owners, because we realize that one of the things that we can do to engage kids is create incentives. And those incentives, we think, come from different businesses, coupons and those kind of things. So we created a rewards program for their participation, and we're looking forward to increasing that significantly. We've also been trying to introduce some of these children to some cultural amenities this past year. We were able to go to the Carver Theater. We took 162 of the kids to see the movie Till, and then we let their coaches unpack that so that they could learn how to deal with some of the civil rights issues in a healthy way. It was extremely well received. We would have had more, but the date chosen was right before spring break. And so some of them didn't go, and we gotta plan that out a little bit better next time. The heat completion ceremony was held at the Harbor Center. The mayor was gracious enough to come and speak for us, and we were ecstatic that the kids came. And they loved it. They got a chance to see their own success. Each cohort is required at the end of the program to present a public presentation on something that can benefit the community. It's up to them. And you would have been really pleased with how they engaged and with the coaches and how they presented themselves in terms of what's important to them. I think the one that caught my attention the most was one video that was about domestic violence that the kids shot themselves. And so we're looking to make sure that we can help them in that, understand those issues a little bit better. All of these things help to deal with the issue of conflict resolution. Next slide. We also had a wonderful celebration this summer because we collaborated with the Birmingham Housing Authority, and we had common summers. We used our He, Her, which is a female version, and Excel curriculum in every public housing unit in Birmingham. And we were able to go into all of them for 5 weeks this summer and teach this curriculum. And so the numbers, I think on the next slide, yeah, those are the numbers of participants that we had in every school. 271 kids were touched again by the curriculum. The beautiful thing about this, we think, is that of those 271 children, we probably hit some of the same ones who we got in school again, so we're reinforcing all these principles every time we talk to them. Next slide. Yes, down the questions for you.
Well, I thank you for this presentation. I know there are probably questions. I just wanted to say what you started at the onset about the cooperation with the Birmingham City Schools.
Yes.
I know that in the past, and I think Mayor Woodfin and also Councilor Clark, we know that in the past, typically, when you have these type programs that are coming in, they're not eager to share data. And so this shows a lot about the faith that the school system and the superintendent himself, that they have and wanted to ensure in working with this program. So I think that's very, very beneficial.
We haven't gotten that resistance that we know, that we know of. It's been the exact opposite.
You would know it, so.
Madam
Yes.
President, before you open it up to your comments or
Yes.
questions, I do want to express my public appreciation for Jeff Sparks, for Galvin Phillips, for both of their entire teams who were present, as well as the coaches and some of the other team members that literally deal in this work every day. They're present. This program just said it, but the whole notion of being culturally aware and sensitive to curriculum and what needs to be embedded to engage these young black boys and young black girls. Every day you all get calls, read information, and see things that are crime-related in the community. And you want an immediate response from the police. You want action from the mayor's office. And it's your desire, ours equally, to decrease some of these issues that exist. But as your colleague who's not here, I'd like to say, Tate, we didn't get it overnight. You can't solve it overnight. I think the thing I like about this program is that one of the things that bothers me in this position I'm in, I'm sure it bothers you as well. We fight uphill every day on some of these things that are ingrained in our culture. One of the things, and it's literally been embedded in a minimum of 2 generations, possibly 3, but I know 2 generations, is that if someone hits you, you've been taught to hit them back. And I've shared this with y'all before when they become adults. What they do now is just, instead of using these, they just insert a gun in their hand. And gun culture is also ingrained in America's culture. Those are 2 separate uphill battles that exist in our urban community. This is a long-term play. You won't see, he's showing you some results, but this next generation, at some point they will be adults, and you will hope that whatever conflict they see and or meet them, because there will be conflict, that they choose not to respond with violence. They choose not to respond with fighting, or worse, they choose not to respond by actually shooting someone or going back and forth shooting. So I think this is very impressive of all of our programs. They're showing you hard, tangible data here. But I think we're literally trying to impact a generation and change culture of fighting uphill with this program. So
Thank
I
you.
wanted to provide that context.
Glad you mentioned that, and that kind of brings it into focus as to how this program could be beneficial and what they're fighting against. So thank you. Any questions? I know there are comments and questions. Thank you guys for attending.
Judge, I have a question.
Yes, ma'am.
For the common summers, why didn't you go to the Bills at Titusville?
We partnered with the Housing Authority, and we went to every Housing Authority unit. They sent us to, if it's not on there, I don't,
Which one did you
we
mention?
didn't ignore
Was
it.
it
The old Loveland's Village, the Bills at Titusville,
Sure.
they're not listed.
At
Oh.
the time, I can give more
Yeah.
information. At the time that we engaged them, those were the sites that were offering summer programs.
Gotcha.
And so the village at Titusville was not offering a summer program at that time.
You can imagine part of the transition, part of it is that concentrated parking doesn't exist anymore either. They broke it up.
In North Titusville?
And the new sites. But I get what you're saying. His answer is the right answer.
Okay.
I was just providing some color around it, that
Yeah.
some of these sites have changed, right? That, like, let's say, when Southtown will look different from now. So does Metropolitan Gardens. So does Loveland Village now, and soon Southtown, and on and on. It is our desire in the future, Kingston will look different, Gate City will look different, North Avondale will look different as well.
Well, while it looks different, it's still a low-income neighborhood. But now that I know, maybe we can work together to see if we can have a summer program and then include you all next summer.
Well, we want to be included, and I tell you this, we found out in our effort to roll out the summer program with the Housing Authority, that one of the glitches we had was that a lot of the kids, some of them were in the enrichment program of school. And so if we can work better with the school system, we'll be able to hit those kids at school and maybe have the Housing Authority help us that way. So we'll be able to get all those people.
Yeah, because we had Superintendent's Academy. And
Yes.
Yeah, and they used to come in and do programs like that, and that was very effective.
We hope we can get involved in that as well. We think that's a good way to reach them.
There's a unique opportunity. I know every single K through 5th, K through 8th and 6 through 8 school have after-school programs 3 to 5.
Yeah.
No cost to the parent. All we want from the parent is please allow your child to stay.
I'm about to say, I was an after-school care.
And we have on there today, we tried, when we first started, we tried after school with the curriculum. But there's too many conflicting issues. But now with the support of the school system, we believe they bring us in, we can better program the after-school time and get another set of sessions to be with the kids. And so we're excited about that. I also didn't tell you anything. First, that we're going to plan, this is going to sound, at transition years, 5th grade, 8th grade, we plan on taking 5th graders on an overnight trip to be able to spend more out of school time with people in a positive setting. And the school system has just been ecstatic about this, and we're choosing 5th grade and 6th grade, and 8th grade, because they're transitioning to another level of school at that point. And we think that that's going to be really important for them. I also want to tell you, this logo you see up here, you're going to start seeing it. We're going to bring y'all some swag with it on here. All right, we're going to bring y'all some swag. All right, because we want the kids to know that.
And then, Madam President, if I can ask about the
Yes.
parents piece, how are you going to try to persuade or get the parents to come? Because we're seeing now, just in general, parents are really dropping off kids, whether it's the parks, whether it's schools. Like, how are you going to get them engaged? What's going to be the attracting piece?
We have a few schools that have some parent groups, and we're going to try to enlist them to help us with common ground and utilize their connections already and use our coaches to enhance that to see if we can get them out.
What are those schools?
The school, well, I can't tell you each one of them, but the school system said they already have some engaged,
Gotcha.
some engaged parents at their school, yes.
Okay, I want to make sure it's diverse because, now I went to some of those schools. You have those schools where parents are very active, but I think sometimes you forget those schools where the parents maybe aren't as active.
Yes.
And so I just want to make sure that we include all different types of parents and family members with that, or family units with that.
Yes, ma'am, it's our intention to do that.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, go ahead.
So for this program, are students referred in who have some sort of behavioral problem? It sounds like you're also doing some targeting, but like, were you gonna do it for the 4th grade classes? But is it like students get referred if they're having some challenges, behavioral challenges?
We didn't put any intentional labels on who would go into class. We let the councils and the teachers identify who they thought should be in the classes. And we met with the superintendent over elementary schools this past week. And she specifically recommended that we use 2 particular grades at that level. And the 4th grade was not one of them. It was 4th and 5th grade that she told me we need to do. So we're gonna be in that space, but we're using the school's guidance.
So it's not really replacing, so she brought up my school board days. I was thinking about, youth detention, and we could send people to the school and they just serve out whatever that period and come right back and do the same behaviors. But I was just thinking the school system has needed something, substantive.
And we're at that school. The detention, the school, when they get sent to alternative school, we're there with the program.
Okay.
We're there with the program. Our challenge is to connect what's there at the alternative school back to the school when they come. And so we think we can do that with our curriculum. We'll be able to teach them while they're there, these concepts, and then when they come back to the school, pick up what they left off.
Yeah, and I was just thinking with the parents, I know your budget might not permit it, but maybe some sort of gift cards. I know you talked about rewards and coupons, but I think
Yes.
gift cards are helpful, because some people really,
Need to be incentivized.
yeah.
We've listened to the schools and what they
Dinner,
use.
meals.
It's a slippery slope for us in that respect, to start using.
But maybe somebody can sponsor out of your coach group.
Yes, ma'am.
And more female coaches, too.
Go ahead, yes.
Park and Rec summer camps, is that a possibility for Heat to be in there?
Absolutely.
Yeah, okay. I was just thinking about that. Because I know Memorial Park has so many kids, y'all. But that was just a good opportunity to have that there. So I don't know how we can help you all.
You can help us find coaches, and the coaches that we need are, you can imagine 2 times a week, 60 to 90 hours, 90 minutes a day, take somebody with a certain job or in a certain place in life But we know who these folks are, they just may not know about the program. So if you can help us identify younger people who have that freedom of movement during the week who might qualify, that would be a tremendous help for us.
I do,
Send them,
yeah.
and we'll get them certified.
Judge, and
Yes,
that
ma'am.
I'm gonna piggyback off what Councilor Smith said, if you can, when you start the next coaching training, and some of the things that I heard that people couldn't get out their jobs. I mean, I don't know what it looks like going forward. Would it be like, because I know we talked about it, and you said it was contingent upon the coaches, the days that they could come to Birmingham, so we could kind of work around, like, trying to build a schedule where we can get more coaches and more people engaged. So I'm glad to see an expansion, and I know you and I, we talked about, involving the family unit.
That's one of our core issues that we've been working with the writers of the program on. Because each time they come in, they want 2.5 or 3 days to train people. We told them that it's not sustainable for us based on the people we have to bring in. And so because we've trained so many coaches already, we've outstripped anything they've done anywhere else in the country. We're in a different place than anybody else. We've asked them to adopt for us a train-the-trainer model so that we can be the one to identify and train our own folk. And it looks like they're going to lean toward us being a training site for the HEAT curriculum, which means that anyone they send, probably in the Southeast, for training, they'll probably start sending to Birmingham so we can help them do training. And when we do that, then we can train people in a shorter period of time.
So, and another question, you did hear the Preble Messenger presentation, because I'm just sitting here thinking how, and as Protein was saying, how do we, because the Preble Messenger, it just, that works with the whole family unit. So to see that you got this expansion around the whole family and just really trying to see, how do we work collectively and tie this in with what you're doing to assist or like walk alongside of you.
Ironically, counsel, you'll like this. Some of the things we're talking about doing with the kids is some lock-ins. We're doing them at the Opportunity Center. When we took the folks who run the lock-ins to the Opportunity Center, we met the team here and started talking about possible collaborations in that space, because we don't want to reinvent the wheel. What they already do well, we want to give them the space to do that, and then we don't have to be. So I think that ecosystem that you're talking about is sort of creating itself. The more we bump into each other, the more we realize that we have to work together.
And that's the goal, to build like this great resource so we can all be connected and know who each other is and, working together. And so we had the opportunity, as Judge talk about the Opportunity Center. The Opportunity Center is a young man who was formerly incarcerated, want to get the mayor, his team over there to see it. It's a beautiful site, the old Sardis Family Life Center, that he has taken it and done some tremendous work over there. I mean, just beautiful work. It's in Council Clark's district. And he's a Preble Messenger, so, I mean, he's doing some great things over there. So I just see some good, beautiful stuff coming out of all of this. And I just think, for me, once we get everybody singing the same song, we're going to be good. We're going to be really good.
Well, thank you, Judge Sparks. Any other questions or comments, Chief?
No, I think Judge should at least introduce the team that's
Yes.
really, like,
Yes, please. Can I let them introduce themselves, please? Yes. Come on, everybody.
don't be shy.
Don't be shy.
While they're coming up, Judge, I think we appreciate the data. The data shows the effectiveness of the investment, so thank you very much.
Yes, sir.
And I got one last thing, Judy. I did get an opportunity to go to one of the HEAT graduations, the adult, and was very, very impressed. Like Jill said, them folks wanted to cuss him out, but they didn't hear that they appreciated it at the end, but it was I even participated in the graduation. It was an RN, a guy that was a nurse, a guy had started his business, somebody was homeless, and their whole life changed just by going through, the adult portion of the HEAT program. So I went out there and I read about the brothers who started the HEAT program, it's just very successful. It started in Florida and it just has taken off.
One of the slides that I put up, the young man was standing up holding a poster. He owns Wicked Wieners,
The hot dog.
the hot dogs. He came through our program. That's
The hot
what-
dog. Started on the south side.
I'm gonna let you, your introductions.
Yes, all right.
My name is Mackenzie Hallway. I have the pleasure of serving as one of the court administrators at municipal court.
My name is Kerry Thomas, I'm a probation officer and one of the program coordinators for Commonwealth.
My name is Miranda O'Neill-Lockett, and I serve as the Director of Social Services at Municipal Court.
And the project director, yes.
I'm Melanie Colston. I have the pleasure of serving as one of the other court administrators for Birmingham Municipal Court.
I'm working junior. I have the pleasure of serving as the project manager for the City of Birmingham Department of Youth Services.
And I'm Nanda Jones. I serve as administrative clerk at Municipal Court.
Thank you, thank you. Is this your whole team? Thank you.
This is, yes, this is not everybody.
Not
We have
everybody.
A number of coaches that are not here that serve in other capacities. It takes a village.
That's right.
Yes, ma'am. They're not here.
Well, we do thank you for bringing this update. As Councilor Williams said, also the data is very helpful. It's meaningful to us, and these type of updates are just very encouraging for what the program is doing and what it can continue to do for us. So thank you all.
If you're available next week when we do the cookout with the kids at Bill Harris, we'll send the invitation.
Thank you. Please send it to us.
Say hello to them.
Thank you. We love that. Thank you. Thank you. That's right. I think you already sent it. Yes, I think most of us have already RSVP. Did you get the RSVP? All right, thank you very much. We appreciate you all.
Thank you.
All right, counselors, we're just going to go into our third presentation, our final one for this afternoon. And this is an update on our Citizens Participation Plan. This update is going to be provided to us from members of the Office of City Attorney. And we thank you all for providing us with this update this afternoon. I don't know if we just need to, before we start with the information that's being presented to us, just sort of how we got here and what we've been doing. I know that we did have a work session with the CAB where we got some draft information. They gave us draft with comments. Then we also put comments, and then we took that information and turned it over to the Office of the City Attorney for some clarification and for some guidance. So thank you, Attorney Scruggs, and I'll let you introduce yourself and guide us through this. Thank you.
Madam President, I am Beverly Scruggs with the Office of the City Attorney.
And let me say also, we do have in the audience some CAB members, so thank you. And we have also other members from the Office of the City Attorney. So thank you very much. Go ahead, Ms. Scruggs, I'm sorry.
Council previously submitted an intake request to the Office of the City Attorney to request a legal review of the Citizens Advisory Board's final edits to the Citizen Participation Plan. We've conducted that review, and I'm here today to present our findings. The scope of the review was a legal and compliance review, so we consulted the relevant federal regulations related to both the CDG program in general and specifically the citizen participation portion of that program. In addition, it was also necessary to consult other federal regulations that were related, specifically as it relates to discrimination, accessibility, and issues that are components of the citizen participation program. So we consulted Code of Federal Regulations, and we looked at Part 24 and Section 91.105, which speaks directly to what the components of the citizen participation plan should be. So we looked at that and compared, of course, what the regulation mandated to what was included in our citizen participation plan. And if you look at the packet that you provided, the initial one should be those markups included. So we took that and compared it to what should also be included in your packet at Exhibit B. You should have a copy of that code section of Section 91.105. And if you look at Section 91.105, I know that print's kind of small. but it is very explicit about what must be included in a citizen participation plan and about what a jurisdiction who is attempting to receive funding must do to comply with regulations. So every instance where there was a must or a shall that we failed to include in our citizen participation plan, we noted that as an instance of non-compliance. So based on that, I'm sorry. Based on that, we were able to determine that there were several lapses in compliance that are going to require a more comprehensive review for us to be able to determine the appropriate corrective action to be able to bring us into compliance with HUD's guidelines as it relates to the citizen participation plan. And just to summarize those lapses or those findings, they included the language disability and physical disabilities and the different types of people who CDBG hopes that we'll target or that we'll reach with our citizen participation program. And that required us to be able to include people of not just, when we think of language, we think of people who speak foreign languages, and that's also one of the instances. But one of the things that we have to consider when we're looking at languages, we're also looking at people who may have physical disabilities that impact their ability to be able to understand language or see, hear. So we've got to be able to make documents and meetings and hearings and all plan-related material available to those people if they exist. And we have to include in our plan for being able to reach those people, you know, whether we're going to have translation services available, whether there will be people available to translate different things into different languages or into Braille, or to have sign language available at hearings or meetings for people who are hearing impaired. So the plan has to be really explicit about how it complies with Section 91.105, and it has to be very explicit in the way that it develops the plan for targeting those specific groups that we're trying to be intentional about including. We have been in the past very focused on including low-income and minority citizens because those are one of the target groups that HUD wants us to focus on, but also included in that group has to be people who have physical disabilities or mental disabilities, or people who have limited English proficiency. So we have to be able to make sure that that we're reaching everyone that we're intending to reach. And in addition to the federal regulations that give us the structure and the components that we have to include, there's also federal guidance that has been created. And that guidance sheds light on the regulations and kind of tells us how we do it. Like, we know we want to reach residents who speak foreign languages, but how do we do it? What's required of us? So we've got federal guidance in the form of final guidance from HUD. When agencies are attempting to shed light on regulations, they will create that guidance that is supposed to tell you how it impacts their particular agency, or as it relates to this situation, how it impacts this particular program. So we've got final guidance from HUD that tells us exactly how we're supposed to attempt to reach people of limited English proficiency. We've got the incorporation of Title VI of the Civil Rights Act that will let us make us aware of the fact that we have to incorporate people of different national origins and people of different disabilities into the process. And then we have federal guidance that kind of speaks to how we're supposed to correlate the regulations that relate to the CDBG program with Title VI. So we have all those things, and we've looked at them, you know, in consort to try and look at how they work together. And based on that you know, review of all those things in totality, it's clear that there needs to be, you know, something comprehensive done so that we can bring the citizen participation plan into compliance. There have been some changes to the federal guidance as recently as 2016 that kind of added some additional steps on us, and that's largely due to the growing population of people of, you know, Hispanic descent, to be specific, but of course other languages as well. There is built into the process from the federal guidance, a four-factor analysis. That four-factor analysis requires that we initially determine whether or not we have the numbers present with people who have these different language issues, and it's not just a generic, non-English speaking or people with limited English proficiency. It's basically language specific. So, and we will use the census to be able to make that assessment of the initial level. We take the census results and we look at, because they actually track that information and track, not just the descent, but also their whether or not they speak fluid English. So we take those and we look at the numbers, and before we even have an initial step where we have to go forward and do anything else, we have to look at those numbers. So if we only have, 5 people in the city who speak Mandarin Chinese, then we won't have to make that language a part of our language access plan. But the initial step requires that we at least apply the four-factor analysis to, number one, see whether or not there is a need for this specific language or this specific group. And if there is, then we've got to move to the next step, meaning identify whether or not we're going to have to do translation services and include in our plan what our strategy is for meeting the needs of the people who have been identified. So our proposed edits to the CPP do not include the affirmative language that is necessary for us to be able to say that we have applied the four-factor analysis and that we have, in fact, taken reasonable steps to make sure that we're providing meaningful access to the program to people of all languages and ethnicities, and to, in addition to people who fall into the disabled category, potentially vision impaired, hearing impaired, or some other type of disability. So we have to be able to identify the limited English proficiency groups to see which groups we need to focus on. And of course, like I said, the largest group presently is the Hispanic group. I've got some numbers. I don't anticipate that they're current and that they have been taken through the process where we're at a situation where we can say definitively that, we've got to do these things as it relates to that particular language. But that's the first step, is finding out whether or not there's an identifiable proportion of people in this group who we need to respond to. So we haven't done those things. So that has to be done. That has to be included. And again, accessibility. The document presently only speaks to location accessibility. That's only one type of physically handicapped person. There are residents who are potentially dealing with vision and hearing impairments, and we have not taken any steps or included any language that assures HUD that we're affirmatively addressing those issues. So they're just a multitude of accessibility-related issues that need to be considered before we can consider ourselves in compliance as it relates to that issue. In addition to the federal regulatory issues that are causing compliance issues, there's also presently included in the CAD's final edits an impermissible attempt to relegate the role of determining whether or not a particular funding request is a public purpose to the CPP instead of the council sending it through the normal review, and that can't be done. The council has the power to determine whether or not any expenditure is a public purpose, and we can't allow the CPP to incorporate language that attempts to do that instead of the council. In addition to that, there is also inclusion of language that discusses the city's role and funding of an election to elect neighborhood officers, and it is something that is not authorized by state law. So in order for the document to be brought into compliance, references that suggest that the city will take on such a role should be reviewed and potentially deleted. So those are the basic issues that need to be addressed before we can consider the document to be in compliance. And do you have any questions regarding? I just keep talking.
I do.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, when I read this thing, I was so depressed when I got through. I thought, well, how the heck can a program that's almost 50 years old have been rocking along, and all of a sudden we discover that we're so far out of compliance that, how does this happen? And then to say that the city can't conduct the elections or be involved in them, and I thought, my goodness, the melee that would go on out there if we told neighborhood people to handle their own elections. I mean, it's bad enough, Alice, when y'all handle them. So, you know, I was just really, I mean, I just was hanging my head, so, I mean, I thought, gosh, what are we gonna do? Just cancel the whole thing? Well, we can't do that because neighborhood associations are just too important to throw the baby out with the bathwater. But, you know, how can we have been, just HUD not look at anything? If they don't look at anything, why change it? Because clearly they haven't been looking for almost 50 years. I mean, next year is number 50.
Well, if you look at item F in your packet, HUD does look from time to time. There should be the results of the 2009 audit of our program that resulted in us being penalized. It's not something that happens with great consistency. It's a random type audit process. In addition, you should also see in there a little compliance packet. I'm trying to remember which is which. No, I got that backwards. Item F is the little form that they use when they're conducting a compliance review. And that form is the thing that includes everything that they're going to look at and check off. And if there's significant issues based on the review of that form, then you're going to be looking at potential implications from your lack of compliance. Item D is going to be, Item D is a language access plan that has been created for the city of Birmingham that has not been incorporated into the citizen participation program. And one of the reasons why we've probably gotten away with it for as long as we have is because the rest of the program is functioning properly as it should be and doing what it needs to do. But the citizen participation program has just not remained up to speed. In addition to that, there's also the issue that, you know, this is a program that requires a certain amount of flexibility because demographics and circumstances change, which is why, in addition to the federal regulations, we also have to incorporate federal guidance into it because federal agencies, in this instance HUD, will occasionally release guidance in the form of their general counsel will release guidance or opinion letters, those final guidances that kind of just sum up what the agency's stance on a particular issue is. They come out regularly. They're you know, some come out on an annual basis. I think I looked at the numbers, and there's on average probably about 10 to 15 that come out a year. So it's like most areas of the law, it's evolving and growing and changing. It's organic. The most recent major change to the process, as I said, was in 2016, and that was strictly focused on making sure that recipients of HUD funding were aware of the fact that they were bound by those laws, Title VI of the Civil Rights Act, and, you know, a multitude. I didn't include it in your packet, but there are in excess of 20 relevant related regulations that aren't specifically about the CDBG program or even about HUD that are connected, because we're talking about discrimination and accessibility. It kind of reaches out and impacts a lot of other things.
But is this accessibility, I mean, like, we have the consolidated plan and we divvy up the money according to who comes and asks for it and who is judged to be competent to receive it and to do what they say they'll do. So are we talking about mainly the federal funds? Because certainly the neighborhood funds come out of the general fund and they don't, as far as I know, have anything to do with the feds. Neighborhood meetings. Can you imagine having to have your neighborhood meetings in Braille? I mean, really? How, and the city doesn't even do anything to attract people to come to neighborhood meetings, and so how are we going to find the Latinos and the people from Tahiti who live here, and then find somebody who can speak their language to come to a neighborhood meeting? There's 99 neighborhood meetings. So does this Does this have anything to do with the way we've organized our neighborhood associations, or is this mainly focused on the consolidated plan and the public hearings that occur in order for people to know about that? I mean, is that mainly what we're talking about, or are we getting to the nitty-gritty of the neighborhood association setup, which the city created? The feds didn't create that. They told us to come up with a way to ensure that residents were involved in the decisions on spending the CDBG money that we used to have a lot of and now we don't have so much of. So, which is it?
Well, as it relates to the federal regulations, we're strictly focused on complying with Section 91.105. And that does not necessarily require us to take additional steps as it relates to translating anything into Braille or Spanish or anything else. It requires us to include an assurance in our CPP that we're taking reasonable steps to address those issues when and if they occur, if needed, if necessary. But the language has to be there to give them the assurance. So we're not trying to impact anything as it relates to the consolidated plan. We're strictly trying to bring the CPP into compliance. And what that requires is certain language. It doesn't necessarily reach another step unless and until there is a blind resident who attends a neighborhood association meeting and asks for a service. Until the service is requested, there's no obligation on the city's part to do anything.
Well, I'm relieved about that. So if we fix our plan and take out all the illegal stuff and put in all the stuff that's not there, then could we have a citizen participation plan for the feds and then one for us? The real people who actually are attending neighborhood meetings and making neighborhood decisions, because that's a local thing that doesn't really have anything to do with HUD. They probably don't care that we have 99 neighborhood associations.
Yes.
Madam President, Council Abbott, with regards to the neighborhood association, I did ask on behalf of the council that OCA, until you are briefed and have an understanding of what our requirement is as it relates to the CDBG funding, to reserve its opinion on the neighborhood associations. Because that's something that's in the legislative purview of the council, that the council have some discussion on what that looks like, not OCA giving you a recommendation of the council.
Well, and I appreciate that, but the question really is, okay, we've got a document here that has a whole lot of problems. And so, but it has problems from the federal government's HUD standpoint, not from a local standpoint. So I was just asking, can we have one for the feds and a separate one for us that we create ourselves to deal with our neighborhood associations and all that? I mean, can we do it if we want to? That's the question.
Yes. So, President and Council, so what Attorney Scruggs is giving you all is a global overview. And so it's not having one separate, it's just for you all for consideration to incorporate those changes. And so we understand your concerns and she will make it easy to digest on those.
Thank you.
Go ahead.
Madam President, as it relates to the issues strictly being related to federal noncompliance, there's at least one pretty essential area of noncompliance as it relates to state law, and that's the inclusion of the language regarding the election of the neighborhood officers and the funding of the election. And as you were saying earlier about how did we get here and how have we been doing this so long, I can't say because I'm not privy to that information, but I'm sure that part of it was that reluctance that we've been doing it for so long in a certain way and reluctance to change it for a multitude of reasons that I'm not at liberty to discuss or have the answers to. But I do know this, that I think we're uniquely situated to be able to bring this document into compliance so that we don't have to have these issues again. I do think that there are consequences to noncompliance that we have escaped just by luck of the draw, and how long we're going to be lucky, I don't know. That's on the federal end of it. On the state end of it, you're talking about being able to have two documents. I think any document that you have in place, regardless of what you call it, whether one's called the Citizen Participation Plan and one's called something else, they both have to be compliant with all aspects of law. And a document that includes language that is at variance with the law of the state of Alabama is problematic. So is it possible to separate those documents in a sense? Potentially. There can be a document that controls the city's relationship to the neighborhood associations that is not the CPP, if that's what the council decides to do. But that document still needs to be drafted in compliance with all relevant law. So that means that language that is legally impermissible should not be included.
Thank you.
I'm just trying to figure out what's so bad about what we have to do to bring it into compliance. Maybe I missed that.
Well, I don't think it's so bad, so I'm not sure I'm the one to address
So
that.
we do need to bring it into compliance, and so your markup gets us there, right?
My markup gets us there. I think, like I said, Section 91.105 is explicit. It's extremely clear about what's been included, and many jurisdictions just, take it, change the phrasing and the word around and regurgitate what's included in there to make sure that they've complied with what it requires. We just have to include the assurances that we're required to include to be able to be compliant. We have to tell them that we're going to apply the four-factor analysis. We have to tell them that we're going to check to see whether or not we have the need to offer translation services, and that if we, find that there is a need, that we will take these steps, A, B, and C.
So do we have to create some operating processes for doing that stuff if it ever happens? It probably didn't have to be in the plan. We just need to know what we're going to do, right?
Well, we do have to create a process for what we would do if we came to that situation. As I said earlier, that there is already a language access plan in place for the city created by the Department of Community Development.
It just needs to be.
It just needs to be incorporated into the Citizens Participation Plan, and we just need to be able to assure HUD, make an affirmative statement that we have created a language access plan. We will apply the four-factor analysis, and if we determine that it is required, we will offer the relevant translation services. As I said, it just the language is pretty explicit, and it's not necessarily difficult to draft a document that complies with that section because it is so clearly written. It's a simple fact of making sure that if an assurance is required by that section, that we include that assurance in the plan.
Councilor Woods, and then Mr. Wells.
Can you repeat the part about, I think you said something, did you say the CP, who took out the part about the city being involved in the election? Where did that come from?
The part about the city being involved in the election is a state issue. State law doesn't authorize it. It's not an expense that the city has the legal authorization to be able to expend.
Okay, so and that, I guess that's personnel participating,
It's personnel participating,
facilities.
it's everything. And, there are, of course, a myriad of ways that we could structure it so that we remove the city, but.
Or we could go to the legislature.
Would it not, if it was federal funding, would that make a difference?
Regardless of the source of funding, we still have the same obligation to comply with all relevant state, local, and federal laws.
And then have you talked to the, I guess the leadership, what the different, who's it? The president. Yeah, President North Birmingham, I guess the leadership, or have you talked to the CAB about that, or?
I was present at, I can't remember when the meeting was, but I was present at a meeting when they were in the process of making their edits, and shared with them the very same information that I'm sharing with you today. However, I'm not satisfied that my appeal was responded to appropriately.
Have they gotten this? Have they gotten the red line version?
They have not received a red line version.
No, because what we're doing at this juncture is that we received this.
So this
the
is
red
fresh.
line That we received, July 20th. That included the OCA's review of it, and then their suggestions and their red line of how to bring us into compliance in certain ways, okay? And so, what the purpose of this meeting is to get that directive, because it's helping me, because just reading this, I didn't have all of these exhibits that sort of tell us how we get here and where that voice was coming from. So I'm hoping that now we can take this information back, but I understand your concern. We're gonna get Ms. Rose. Get her out.
I'm good,
Yes.
I'm good.
Because I know I understand your concern about how we're communicating that back and forth with the CAB. Yes.
To his point, that he just made to her, I'm not so sure that the CAB, when we did that, completely understood what she was saying, like she just said it now. I just got it. So I think that's a point that maybe we need to look back at.
I'm in agreement with that. Because as you know, we had the work session, and so that was their comments and our comments back at the CAB. And so that's why I think now we've got this ruling or this, what do you call it, recommendations from a legal standpoint. And so now the more we communicate, because this has a lot of credence as to what drives or what regulates this document to bring us into compliance. Just say that. You with that? Go ahead.
I just had another question about, do we still have HUD funding tied to this agreement? Or where are we at in that process? I know when it originated, I didn't know that had a time limit on it initially.
When you say tied to it, this is still a regulatory compliance component of receiving funding. It's still part of the entitlement process that a jurisdiction must develop and implement a citizen participation plan that includes the components that are outlined in section 91.105. So it is still part of what we have to do to be able to receive funding. Are we supporting some aspect of our citizen participation program with HUD funding? No.
And I guess have we never been audited or?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, when's the most recent audit?
We have, the instance I referred to was an audit in 2009 related to the use of HUD funds inappropriately.
With a copy?
It should be included in your packet.
I mean, I can give you, unfortunately, I was here. And Ms. Abbott was here. I think it was related to us using CDB funding for employees that were considered CRRs at that time. And that didn't coincide with what HUD funds should be used for employees in participation in our CP plan. And so we got tapped on the hand with that one. That's why.
And we also were sending out neighborhood notices,
Yeah,
those nice little flyers that we love so much. Well, they cut those things off in a New York minute.
And that's why.
They said we couldn't use federal funds to do that.
And that's why our CRRs are now part of the general fund instead of this CDBG funding.
I guess high level, maybe need some more time to think about this, but how do you hold neighborhood elections without any city participation?
I think ultimately that's a question for the council to decide. But I will say that there are models in other cities and other states where they have created a process where, we have advisory boards and other capacity for other entities and other functions in the city, like the Citizens Advisory Board or corollary. There should be a process by which the council appoints people to advisory boards, and then there should be a mechanism that both defines and establishes what the board is and does and what the criteria is for being appointed to be a member of that board, and that kind of directs the function of it. As it relates to the citizen organization program component, as far as the neighborhood associations, that's a little different because those organizations are open membership, The council's not going to appoint every citizen in the city of Birmingham to the neighborhood association in their neighborhood. So those organizations could potentially be untethered to an extent. As you know, there are restrictions and issues that are created by their relationship with the city and ethical obligations that are placed on members of those neighborhood associations if they accept funding from this source or if they do certain things. So, you know, some cities have opted to make those organizations at the neighborhood level a little less formal, and as I said, untethering them from the governmental process and then kind of routing things through at the next level, which for us would be the community level. That's just one example of what other cities have done. But as I said, that's a question that only the council can determine about what's best for the city of Birmingham. But, and I'm not here trying to be a proponent of any particular process. I simply want to say that that the election language has created a compliance issue.
I think Chaz has some.
So I guess my thing is with the election, why can't we do what we did in school, which is the organization did it themselves? Like that would make more sense. Like, say for instance, so like we'll just say like Ball Say UA. It was we did it ourselves. We conducted it. We had like an elections committee, and we had someone else outside of us take the votes, and then we did it that way. Why can't we? I just don't think it's hard.
That is exactly what's being done in those other instances, like the model that I referred to. The neighborhoods handle their own elections, they hold their own elections, and all the cities require is that, that specific example, they require that each neighborhood association is not just our neighborhood associations proper like we have here. They also allow potentially homeowners associations and other associations to meet certain requirements and then be recognized by the city. And part of that recognition process requires that that they submit bylaws to be reviewed and that those bylaws contain sufficient indicia of accessibility and representation so that we know that there's a fair election process. And then once that they're recognized, they elect their officers however they see fit, as long as that process is outlined in their bylaws and that process has that indicia of fairness and representation.
Yeah, I think it'd be good for them with the quorum and everything. You talked about that, having them subjected to Open Meetings Act. I think that's good. You actually did before that. You did a really good job with this memo. I was like, ooh, now I understand it completely. Because at first I was just like, I know they're out of compliance, but how exactly are they? So kudos to you for that.
Let me ask you, piggyback on Council Pro Tem's question and your answer. In those models that you looked at where they were doing their own elections, is there a component or a piece where they're getting funding from that municipality that would drive or that would regulate that or that would dispense that or that this is still go back to the city? So I'm even thinking if we had HOAs that would, I wouldn't say become a part of this, but that have, you know, that come under those guidelines. I guess I'm just trying to go back and see how does that relate with the financial piece or the disbursement or allocation of funds.
I can't say that I've researched it to the extent that I can tell you exactly how they structure funding. The couple that I've looked at, and there seem to be a variety of approaches to it, but the couple that I've looked at, as I said, seem to route funding through that next level, as I said, which for us would be the community level. So then the advisory committees or boards at the community level would in fact need to be appointed by the board, and there would need to be created certain parameters for how they act and behave, but funding flows through them to different components of the neighborhoods that are within that community. The example that I'm thinking of is Atlanta, and they have what they call a neighborhood planning unit, which would be a corollary to our neighborhood association. But the neighborhood associations, their neighborhood planning units get all the benefits of the funding. It'll be for that neighborhood. It just has to be routed and directed through at the level above. That's just one potential way to look at it.
National League of Cities is in Atlanta, so maybe we could try to set a meeting or something and kind of go with them and see what they're doing.
Well, go ahead, yes.
attorney said, so basically what you just described is, and Atlanta is big, so it's just like more like a community,
Right.
like board neighborhoods coming together under, like just hypothetically saying the western side of town, all these neighborhoods come together as one.
In a sense, they still function at the neighborhood level. They still have their neighborhood meetings. They still, do all the things that they do now. The only difference is that the city's employees and our representatives are not regularly interacting with them at that level. The interaction and the funding is focused at the next level, and they're still, receiving the same benefits and still projects being addressed in the same way. It's just a flow of information, a flow of funding.
We do appreciate you bringing us this information. I think the dialogue and just the share of information has been very helpful to us as we go back, because now we have these additional documents that we can review. And for me, the comparison of, councilors, if you all allow, I want to talk with Council Pro Tem. I would just come up with what we think would be next steps and how to get your feedback and and then also getting other examples out there. And because this does still lie with us as far as the legislative body and how this would be managed, and then working with the CAB as well to ensure that. So thank you very much. So Council Pro Tem, I really appreciate your work. Yes. I just have to say, just for you, where I worked under the 21 CFR, and so it does take some looking at these federal regulations. I'm sure in real estate, you have the same type of guidelines, you have all those kind of things.
Oh, yeah, the federal government ate our lunch routinely.
Perfect. All right. Well, thank you. I'm done with instruction.
Got Chief on the
That's right.
lunch now.
We've got Chief with all that, he's got that rich history
head
from
on
2009. So thank you so much. Thank you. All right, this time, okay, we'll go ahead and adjourn the meeting. Appreciate everyone's attendance and being here this afternoon.
No motion, no nothing.